Hello friends, welcome to the Craft Cottage. I'm out here creating for the 5th Sunday Craft with Friends. You are going to love the lineup this time. I have Christine from Divine Designs and Lolly from LOLI'S Creations. I've been crafting with them almost ever since I started my journey on YouTube. They are amazing, talented creators. So what happens on this, if you're new around here, is I send a box of crafting supplies to two of my crafting friends on YouTube, and all three of us are going to craft with the same basic supplies. And you're going to see how we all create differently, or maybe the same, with the same supplies. Now, we are free to use whatever else in our stash that we want to use. We can use as little or as much from the box as we want. We're going to create a few DIYs for you, so sit back and enjoy, and let's get crafting. These are the items that I sent my friends and that we are going to be crafting with in this video. There is that big wooden star. If you know this story, you know, and there's a wooden tissue box and some music paper, a spindle, some rusty crusty stars, some ticking fabric, some canvas drop cloth, a galvanized pail, some wooden dice, and an vintage drawer pull that looks a little patriotic in my opinion. So let's get started and see what I'm going to create with all of these items. The first thing I'm going to start with is this wooden star. I was able to score a whole bunch of them off Facebook Marketplace a while back. And so we're going to use one of these in our Patriotic DIYs today. I just traced it out on a piece of white paper, and to make accommodations for that little frame around it, I measured and then I drew lines, and I'm just making a template for the inside of this star. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to mark how wide that little frame is, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to just trace it out, and then I'm going to cut on that inside line so that the star will fit right inside. Do you think that it fit perfectly inside? If you think yes, then you're incorrect. I am the worst with measuring and cutting and having it work perfectly the first time. I did have to trim a little bit up to make it fit perfectly, but once I got it all cut out and trimmed up, it fit good enough. Okay, here is the final result of my star. Now I'm got one of these. It's kind of plastic tile, but they're those peel and stick tiles that look like the metal tiles, and you used to be able to get them at Dollar Tree, and I never could find them at my Dollar Tree, and I finally found some at another store called Family Dollar. I don't know if everyone has those, and I bought a lot of them a few years ago, so I have a bunch of these in my stash. So I'm just going to trace that star, and I'm going to use my ruler so I have straight lines, and then I'm just going to cut it out. I'm going to cut that star out. And of course, I got it pretty close to perfect, but I did have to trim a tiny little bit off to make it fit in that frame, even though my piece of paper fit perfectly. Tracing, sometimes things get a little wonky. And there was one spot where it didn't fit completely perfect in there, but this is a rustic DIY, so we're not going to fret about that. I'm going to use the DIY Dark and Decrepit as a stain. It also has a built-in sealer, so we're not going to worry about that. So I did all the outside, and we're going to just give it some time and let it dry. In the meantime, we're going to take that star with a sponge pouncer, and we are going to just put on some Dixie Belle Yankee Blue paint. I did 3 coats, letting it dry completely in between each coat. And then, yes, gave it some time and let it dry completely. And once it's dry after the 3 coats, then I'm going to take some white. This is vintage linen by DIY, so it's not a stark white. It has a little bit of a grayish undertone, which I really like because it looks a little vintage. And we're going to just dry brush. I'm putting a lot of the paint on the sides of the paintbrush because I like to swipe on the side of the brush. And I'm going to just go one direction. I'm not going to go up and down. I'm going to go side to side. I think you get a much better look if you do that when you're dry brushing. I'm not going up and down. I'm only going sideways. So I'm just lightly brushing over the top so that you just bring out all those beautiful details. And I love, love, love how this looks. I've done several projects with these. and it never gets old. I just love them. So let me know if you like this look and if you've crafted with any of these peel and stick tiles. Now on the back side, while that dries, we are going to cut out some Patriotic paper that I had. I got this from Hobby Lobby, and we're just going to use some Mod Podge and adhere that to our star. I'm just going to squirt it directly on my star and just smooth it out evenly, getting it all the way out to the edges. We're going to give it some time. We're going to let it dry completely. Once it dries completely, we're going to use the iron-on method because you get no wrinkles, and I feel like it seals it in very nicely. I'm going to use some parchment paper, not wax paper. I'm going to use my little Cricut heat press. You could use any kind of heat press, any kind of iron, just be sure and not use any steam. We're going to reactivate that glue, and it's just going to press that paper down perfectly. I had a little bit of overhang, so I'm just taking this little finger sander. You could take a nail file and just in a downward motion sanding away that excess paper. It also gives it a little bit of that rustic look. We're just going to wipe off all the little sandy grits, and then to get rid of that little white edge that the paper leaves, we're just going to take the dark wax brush and the dark wax that is left over in it. We're just going to go all the way around the edges and then seal over the top to seal our paper. We're going to put some Titebond Quick and Thick on the inside of our little tray star tray, and make sure it's a nice thick but even coat. It needs to be fairly thick because this star it's not going to adhere in all the places, because wherever you see it white, those are raised areas. So we're just going to press it down, and then we're going to let it dry. Now I have this pretty little spindle. It was like some chair legs that I picked up on the auction site, and I'm just going to take that screw out. And it left a big hole, which is going to be advantageous in the next step. I'm going to also drill a hole in the top of it as well. I'm going to use my little center punch, which is great because it helps your drill bit stay right where you want it and not jump around and bounce around. We're going to put a hole in the bottom of our star, so you can tell we're going to put this star on a spindle stand. It's going to be so cute. So we're going to work on the stand now, and I have this little block of wood. We're going to just sand off that finish. I tried to sand the finish off of this as best I could. I sanded, and oh my goodness, y'all, my hands were tired. They were just exhausted. So I rested them for just a few minutes, and then I took the sanding sponge, which was nice because I could kind of hold it and just twist and twist and twist like you see me doing here. And it was a little easier. I really wasn't trying to get it down to the bare wood. I just needed to get that shiny finish off. So I painted it with that red color by Waverly, and then I did the vintage linen on the bottom piece. Now when they're all completely dry, I'm going to take that same white vintage linen, and I'm going to dry brush on the red spindle piece. And I'm going to do it, I start out fairly lightly, and then I keep going over it until I get the look I want. Because if you get too much, then you have to go back over it with the red, and then the white, and the red, and the white, and then, it just takes extra time. But I'm just going to start out very lightly, and then just keep adding until I get the amount that I want on there. And then when that is done, I'm going to take my little finger sander and just sand it back a little bit to make it look a little rustic. I go all the way down to the wood in a couple places and just back to the red in a little bit. I'm going to take some clear wax by DIY, and I'm just going to wax the entire piece, applying it with a little makeup brush and rubbing off the excess with a scrap piece of an old t-shirt. I'm going to take the dark wax that was left in that brush from a previous project and just hit it in the places where I sanded. I'm just seeing what it's going to look like when it sits on that star. The star sits on it. Then I'm going to take some dark wax. I did add a little bit to my brush and then wipe it back. I'm not sure why I'm tapping them together, but I guess just for fun. I drilled holes to match. I drilled a hole in the base to match the hole in this, we're calling it a spindle. I'm going to use that little dowel stick. I'm going to put some Titebond Quick and Thick, and this is going to give us a good sturdy hold, and this is not going to go anywhere. We're going to do the same process on the top with the hole and the dowel stick, and attach the star in the same manner. We're going to set it aside and let it dry. And I had a tea bag, and I love this striped fabric, but it is just too white because it's just too white. So this tea was actually still warm, and I think it works better when it's still a little bit warm. So I put those little torn strips of fabric in there, shook it up, and let it sit for a little while. I'm going to use some blue strips of fabric that I ripped and some canvas drop cloth that was in our box. I also decided to rip a few pieces of this white fabric that was part of some curtains I had previously used in my salon. Now I'm showing you, if you just take this canvas drop cloth and you just twist it and rub it a little bit, you'll get those rough edges. Now I'm going to take these strips and just make like an X, just a little crisscross pattern, no rhyme or reason to them really, and then just pile them all up because we're going to make kind of a little messy, it's not really even a bow, but it's just like a little messy embellishment. And I'm just going to tie them together in the center, making sure I've got it right in the center, tie a really good knot, and then just kind of even them up a little bit. They don't even have to be really even. And then I'm going to tie it around the neck, the base of the star, the neck of the spindle. I am going to put a tiny little piece of hot glue there because I don't want that knot to come undone, and I don't want that to go anywhere. So I just put a little bit of hot glue there, and my little string was so short I had to get my tweezers out. But this is what it looks like in the end result. Let's grab our little galvanized bucket, and I'm going to take it outside, and I'm going to give it just a good coat of primer, white primer spray paint. And I'm going to use my red paint in Crimson by Waverly, and I'm going to go around and I'm just going to make some stripes as wide as my paintbrush. And I'm not trying to make them perfect. In fact, I want them to not be perfect. I don't want it to be a full coverage stripe. And I'm going to go all the way around till I get back to the beginning. And then on the top, I made some stars on my Cricut with some stencil vinyl, and I'm going to place them all around the top. Then I'm going to take that Yankee Blue paint again, and see, I got a little bit where I shouldn't have, so while it was still wet, I was able to just wipe it back with a wet wipe. And then I'm going to go all the way around that top section with that blue, all around that little handle, and just get it all painted blue. And then I'm going to take my tweezers and I'm going to gently peel back the stars, and that peeled back the paint because I got my tweezers up under the paint instead of just up under the star. But no worries, no worries. We fix our problems around here. I'm going to take those rusty crusty stars, and they were just a little too orange for this project for me. So I'm going to dry brush, do a heavy dry brush of that white vintage linen, and then just wipe it back a little bit. And then later you're going to see me put dark wax on the edges. Hopefully you see that. Okay, this is all dry now, and our stars are all dry, and we're going to put clear wax all over this little bucket to seal the paint. The spray paint obviously doesn't need to be sealed, but the red and the blue need to be sealed. I'm going to take my little scrap of a t-shirt and rub off the excess. Now I'm using dark wax, and I really want that dark wax to be in the crevices. I want this to just look a little bit old and aged. I really thought about putting some rust on it, but that really wasn't the look I was going for either. So I just didn't hear them putting that dark wax all over the stars too. So I'm going to use my Crocodile, which is you can do grommets with it, and you can do hole punch, 2 different sizes, and it even punches through this little galvanized bucket like butter. I mean, it was like so easy. I'm going to take a piece of twine. I'm going to attach that star right over that star that the paint peeled off of, and it looks adorable. It looks like it belongs there. And then I'm going to trim that twine. I'm going to twist it and unravel it a little bit, and this project is complete. How simple and how cute. I love DIYs using old sheet music, old hymnals, old songbooks, and I had to pick these up somewhere. They were not in good shape anymore, and so I'm going to use them. And it was so old. Look, I just on that silicone mat, I just ran my pencil down there, and it just ripped really easy. So I'm going to do 3 of them. I'm only going to show you one. Put some glue on it. This is so easy. You could do this with your kids. They would love this. Kids, grandkids. Yeah, we're going to just wrap this any kind. You could use any kind of fabric or paper or anything. And everybody, all of the crafters on YouTube are making firecrackers and patriotic stuff right now. So I had to make some firecrackers. So once I got them all wrapped up, I'm going to take some dark wax. I'm going to put it on the ends and around especially around the ends, and then I'm just going to dark wax the whole entire piece. And then, as always, I'll just take my little scrap of old t-shirt and buff it out and clean it up. Get off all the excess. And then we are going to use a little bit of jute twine to make our little fuses for our firecrackers. I'm just going to use some of that glue that I have over there in my little dish to glue them down in there, and then I'm going to just cut it. I'm going to cut it kind of long, and then I'm going to fray it. I'm just going to twist it backwards, twist it the opposite direction, right on the end, just to give it a little bit of that frayed look. And then once they're all 3 done, I'm going to use this baker's twine in red and white and blue and white, and we're going to tie them all up. I'm going to glue 2 of them together to lay on the bottom, and then I'm going to glue the 3rd one on top of them. And then we will just tie our jute twine. We'll wrap it around a few times and then tie it in a knot. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, but it's so cute to add to a tier tray or a little vignette. And it was easy and simple. The little dowel rod looking pieces that I used were actually the handles from foam brushes. I forgot to mention that. I mentioned in the beginning of this video that this is the 5th Sunday Craft with Friends. It happens when there's a 5th Sunday of the month, and this time I invited Christine from Divine Designs and Lolly from Lolly D Creations. They are amazing creators. Please be sure and check out their videos and show them some love and tell them that you came over from my channel. If you're here from one of their channels, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Now we're going to start with these 3 dice and some vintage linen. I'm going to give them 1 coat. It doesn't even have to be a full coverage coat, just 1 coat. And I'm going to take some of these just little scraps of scrapbook paper that I have. This is probably what came off of that star that I cut off earlier. And then you can see that I'm just going to trace it around, and I'm going to do 3 with that ceiling tile, and I'm going to leave one side blank. So I'm going to use Mod Podge, and I'm just going to glue these pieces of paper on there. Now I flipped the pieces of paper over and spritzed them with a little bit of water so that they were a little bit easier, because this is scrapbook paper. I'm using that sandwich bag method to smooth it out so my hands don't, move it around. And then I'm going to use this insignia stamp set from IOD, and I'm just going to type. I'm not going to type. Well, I'm going to stamp. I'm going to stamp the letters USA on these 3 little blocks. Just ink it up, wipe off the excess around. Be sure to clean up your stamps good before you put them back in the package so that they're ready for the next use. Then we're going to glue on the little circles. I painted them the same way that I painted the star, and then glue them to the little blocks. Then we're going to make sure that they're sitting the correct way. We're going to give it some time, and we're going to let it dry. And then we're going to come in with our dark wax, and we are going to just go on the white. I was just concentrating on getting that dark wax on the white, and then it kind of got a little bit all over, and that was okay. I love the way these little blocks turned out. let's get started on this tissue box. Mine was kind of janky. It was kind of broken and the hinges were messed up, so I just took the hinges off. We're actually going to make a double-sided project, so we're going to make two projects, one of them double-sided, out of this little tissue box. I'm just going to leave the lid off. We're just going to use Dark and Decrepit and stain, use it as a stain to stain inside and out and bottom of this little box. And once that's complete, we'll just let it dry. And then I took the Van Dyke Brown Glaze by Dixie Belle, and I think it's Dixie Belle, and gave that star one coat. Now I have this beautiful ticking fabric, and I'm just going to rip a strip that I think is going to fit cute around the center of this box. We're going to make a little planter. That was a little wide. We're going to rip another strip, and that's about where I wanted it to look. I'm just going to glue right in the middle right there. This is actually going to be the back. We're going to flip it over. This is going to be our front. So I'm going to hot glue that down just with a little bit of glue in case I ever want to take it off and redo this. I don't have a lot of hot glue on there, just enough to hold it in place. Now I'm going to take the other part of that and just make a simple awareness bow, pinch it in the middle, take that little strip that I ripped off and tie it together in the middle. Easy peasy. And then I'm going to glue that down to cover up where my fabric didn't meet. Now, it would be cute just like this, but I wanted to add that star in because I needed to use my metal stars, and I'd already used some of my small ones, but I wanted to use that big one, and I just thought it would be cute on here. And this doesn't even have to be just Patriotic. You could use it anytime. I went ahead and used the dark wax that was left over in the brush and just went ahead and did it kind of mostly around the edges. Then I'm going to glue a tiny little twine bow over that hole, and then I'm going to put a lot of hot glue in the middle and glue it to that knot in the middle of the bow. Now the lid's going to be a little bit trickier because we have that mess at the bottom to cover up. So I'm going to take a paint stir stick and I'm going to measure it, and then I'm just going to score it with this box knife until it's scored through enough that I can just break it and have that piece there. I'm just going to get a straight line so I can have a straight line there. I'm just going to keep scoring it about 4 or 5 times, and then I'm just going to break it, and then I'm going to take it on a little piece of sandpaper and smooth it out. And now I'm going to glue it down. You can see how it fits over there, and it's going to make kind of a little lip. It's going to make like a little shadow box, and I'm going to, I usually actually use some clamps until it dried. It was drying about 30 minutes. Now to cover up where those hinges were, I just took a craft stick and cut it down to fit. We're going to put our Titebond Quick and Thick on there, and then we're just going to glue that craft stick down. Same thing. I put some little clamps on it and let it dry. And then I used the Dark and Decrepit and stained the entire piece all around. Now I got this little plank. It was one of those planks that you get at Dollar Tree. There's like maybe 6 of them in a package, and it's a rectangle, and I just cut it to fit that hole. Now I just left this in because, you know, we love to peel glue around here, and I thought you might love that. It's so satisfying to me. Okay, this little piece was a drawer pull. I don't know why I just showed you that. It fell apart when I tried to take the screws out of the back, and so I'm just going to use it that way. I put a coat of Mod Podge on that little plank that I cut down and let it dry completely. And now I'm doing the iron-on method with the flag and the flag paper, and then I'm just going to cut it down because you're not going to see it. It's not going to matter what the edges look like. I did that on both sides. I did the iron-on method with that paper on both sides of that piece, and we're going to glue it in there with some Titebond and some hot glue, and you're going to be able to see it from both sides, and it's going to be like it's supposed to be that way. It looks like a little frame in a little shadow box. Now on this side, I took some twine. I'm going to tie a knot in. I strung on those stars that I didn't use on the previous project that I had painted and done the whitewash on, and the dark wax, and then I'm just going to string them up across the top. And then I had a little piece of that ticking left, so I just made a tiny little bow to put up on top, and I tried to put some florals in it. Oh, we're back on the other side. Never mind. Hang on. So I've got a little tumbling tower block, and we're just going to glue it right to the center of our piece because our drawer pull is not going to make enough contact. So we're going to put it on there. I just decided not to use the pull part, and we're just going to give this some time and let it dry. And then with our beautiful, beautiful chiffon ribbon, this is not the see-through chiffon ribbon, but this is beautiful, kind of a crepey chiffon ribbon. I don't even know what it's called, but that's what I call it. We're going to make a pretty little bow and put some twine in the middle. We're going to clear wax everything so it's all nice and pretty, and then put the bow on. Now, I was going to put some greenery down in there, but I couldn't make it look good. So I just put some messy moss in and called it a day.
That's it for my video today, friends. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you will click on my friends' videos in the description box below. Please be sure and give us all a thumbs up. Leave us a comment down below. Make sure you're subscribed. But most of all, I want you to remember to be still and know that He is God.